Okay, guys, here we are with Colony Wars Redux, our development meeting for December 14th, 2020. Dan is currently showing off his amazing... What are you calling these? These cut-up models of the spaceships for when they explode?
I just been saving it as destructed or dead, or I don't know.
The dead models. Yeah, Colony Wars had a very distinct effect where when a ship would explode, you'd see light cracking out of it, and then it would explode into pieces, and then those pieces would explode, and that's what Dan's working on today. This is our first meeting since we launched the teaser trailer. And we got a lot of comments on it that make me very hopeful. There's a lot of people that played this game back in the day and literally have kind of forgotten about it. And so it was exciting to see their comments. Oh my God, Colony Wars! When is it going to be live? Send me the download link.
Yeah. We also got our first dislike.
Yeah, we got our first dislike too.
Yeah, no very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a screenshot of that. The first fan was, that's not the right thing.
Yeah. Totally. That's funny. So Dan's been working on that. I've been working on the UI. Maybe I should share my screen and let me know when you guys can see my stuff.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I'm not going to go into presentation mode, actually. But I'm going to zoom in. So, we've been talking about how do we fold the UI for the original two games, keep something that's reminiscent, but modernize it so that it's not so cumbersome to navigate through. And Justin, you brought up, you asked me, do you know what anthology series, like what game has multiple games in the installment that you can play from the same menu structure? And the only one I could find that I thought really stood out was Halo Master Chief Collection. And I think we can do something similar. I started wireframing it just to pitch to you guys the idea, where you'd have this main menu, you'd have campaigns. We've talked about including multiplayer, which I don't think should be attached to any one of the games. We should have a multiplayer system that we craft from original, like from scratch. And then you can choose what ships you want to play as. And we'll have to put in some modifying systems so that the damage tables are somewhat similar. Another thing that we could nest in the main menu, the first game, the first Colony Wars had this database system, which was like a Wikipedia system for the game. It was really interesting. You would click on a star system or a type of ship, and a voice would come on and talk about whatever you had clicked on and give you this long backstory that sometimes in no way played into the game, but gave you this fleshed out feeling of the universe. I was thinking we could put that here in the main menu, but because the information contained in it is honestly only pertinent to the first game, it might be something we nest in the first game's menu. But at any rate, this was...
Unless we want to go through the effort of actually writing it for all subsequent assets, which I'm not saying I'm unwilling to do.
That's... Not just you, Chris. Me and you could work on it. We could also... There's a lot on the Colony Wars community wiki that we could procure and put in there. We could also put, a APB out to the community and any materials they want to contribute to it, we could put in there. And the nice thing is for our third game, all that material can be created from scratch.
Yeah.
So that's kind of exciting. We would only have to procure that information for one game. We already have it for the first game. We'd be procuring it for the second game, and we'd be making it up for the third game. So, I don't know. And if we do that, I don't know if we want to keep it in the main menu, but I mocked this up just to kind of give everybody an indication of what it would look like. From there, you would click on campaigns, and then you would have a screen where you could choose each game, any of the games, as if it was its own story, its own campaign. The first one we would just call Colony Wars, the second one we would call Vengeance, and our working title for the third one would be Reprisal. And clicking on one of these then would launch you into a menu system that were a little asymmetric from each other, but were more similar to the original games. So clicking on Colony Wars, you would go into like imagine an HD remix of the Colony Wars menu system. Things would be arranged a little bit differently, but graphically it would be about the same. It would, with these colors and the logo and everything. And then we would do that for every menu screen for both games. Because I know, Justin, you were talking about last week how dated the menu structure is, like the informational architecture. And that's very true. But if we change it too much, I feel like we're deviating too much. We want to build it the way people think they remember it being, not the way it actually was. So we have to reorder the information, but still keep the screen progression similar. And then we'll put in better sound effects and things that aren't so jarring to the ear.
Yep, I think all I said was the sound effects and just more movement among the buttons. So just they're not just static images, but maybe they move a little bit.
Yeah. I dropped in the general channel, I found something, this is one reason I wish Matt was here, because he's going to be taking over the UI. I found, God, we chatted a lot this weekend, didn't we? Yeah, here, check this out. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I checked that out before, it's pretty good.
This Slim UI sci-fi menu kit in the Unity Asset Store, this is like already 90% what I'm saying. And so if we just purchase this asset, I can give it to Matt to customize, and I'll just create the graphics for each screen. But this is a very modern, very snappy little menu that is already so close to what I'm proposing.
Yeah, I really like how it looks.
Yeah. I think these guys did a good job. I mean, we won't know until we look at the code, but it looks good. It's already so much the way there. So yeah. So that's one thing I worked on this weekend, or rather this week. This weekend, Chris and I had a meeting with our sound team. Chris, if you want to pick up the mantle.
Okay.
Conversation.
So yeah, we talked with the sound team. Discussed how to put together that entire 1 hour meeting into a 10-minute conversation.
Yeah, we had a long meeting. Chris knows a lot of people that are good with sound. They're good with music, good with Foley, good with sound effects. And we met with 3 musicians, and we kind of parceled out work. We have 2 people that are very skilled and very interested in working on the music. And then where we left it with the third one is that he wants to do more of the sound effects type stuff. So that actually worked out really well. It was kind of like a brainstorming meeting. It was our first official sound meeting. And so we have direction from that meeting.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah,
We've also got them reaching out to the. We're still trying to find the composer for the second game, but we've got them reaching out to the composer for the first game about licensing and because he better than anyone else would know who exactly still owns the rights to this music. If Sony's let it lapse completely, if they maintain some ownership, so we've got them reaching out to that, and that'll give us a step towards permissions. Because if we don't get permissions, we're going to have to do new compositions.
Yeah.
Which in some ways will be easier, but in some ways will also be harder and is a little bit less ideal.
Yeah, especially with the first game. The music in the first game is so iconic and so part of the first game's personality. It isn't that in the second game it's not. It's just in the second game, it's more moody type music. It's not really action-driven, storytelling music. So that's something we worked on over the weekend. And yeah, just that. We have another meeting scheduled for next week, I imagine. I was going to leave it in their hands to make it. But yeah, that's UI and sound this week. Dan, we know what he's been working on with the breaking up of the model.
Yeah, I wanted to go over. I have a bunch of files opened up, and I wanted to go over the things I've been doing.
Sure,
Just how
let's take a look.
Let's look at the end result. And so I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm going to
I can see your screen.
present to you. Let me change the windows. Okay, so this is the Unity version on my computer.
Uh-huh.
And so this is the Stormlord without any damage and anything, you know?
Yeah.
And the one in front of it is the Stormlord with damage altogether.
Mm-hmm.
I separated it's two textures. One texture is for the inside,
Mm-hmm.
and it has an emissive texture, and that it gives it that glow. So even if it's in pitch black in the dark, you'll be able to see the fire inside the ship.
Yeah. That looks so
it's got a
cool.
mil map, and it's also got a diffuse. And so yeah, I just like split up the models into chunks, and then I just fill it, and then triangulate the topology doesn't really matter. It's just it's not an active or it's not And the way how I did the texture to even give it the bullet holes through the hole and everything to make it look like it's been shot up was that on a load of Substance Painter. Is I added a fancy it's great. It's a what is it? Oh man, I can't. It relies on a couple of textures. It's a generator pretty much, and I can control how much and like where it's been shot and all that stuff. So I don't have to paint any of this. It's just it's built from the ambient and world space and position gradients that I've generated earlier, and then I just threw a grunge map on it. Something that's had lots of spots, and it's great. I could change the scale.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
The rotation if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I could even go as far as to even really go the distance. Is I could say how much and where it needs to be and all that kind of fun stuff, And so it's little damage, lots of damage, and then you're completely destroyed.
So we could easily export progressive damage across the ship. So when its health's down to 80, when it's down to 50, when it's down to 20, and then before it explodes.
And then I don't have to paint any of that stuff on there.
Yeah.
And the texture, it's just it's just you could just I could throw different channels onto it and all that stuff. So it has a normal map and it has a bump, so it could be you can see it. On the inside, I turned the roughness and the metal down because it's supposed to be burnt, so it's not going to be shiny.
Yeah.
Also creates a nice effect where you can really see it and really breaks up the pattern, so it's easy to identify. And it causes a great, just kind of a overall wonderful effect on the entire ship.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to do it for the rest of the ships and everything. So I'm sort of in the progress of snapping apart the.
Yeah, that's super cool, dude. That's super cool.
Very awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Am I back?
You are back.
Okay. Am I still sharing?
No, you're not sharing.
Fine. Hold on.
That's
how
super
far is that? Where was I?
You were saying you were just in the mix of breaking the spaceships up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure. So yeah, it's great because I can just export the texture and it just like it's a texture all of its own, and so we just swap the textures when the ship is destroyed and
Yeah.
whatever we do we choose to use, and so yeah.
Like,
it's
it would be
good.
cool if we could do progressive damage. Like show one texture map at 80% health, one at 50, and then one at 20. And then, its explosion at 0. And then the piece would fly apart. That would be super cool.
Yeah, actually, one part I am worried about is that when let's say the player is primarily just damaging a single part of, let's say, the frigate, so that single part is going to look pretty damaged. But then, right when it crosses a threshold of exploding, we need to somehow transition to replacing the frigate model with the broken up model, basically. So how are we able to, when we do that transition, it's going to seem like a lot of those damage marks are going to just pop up just in random like just across the entire ship when the player didn't damage there. So we're going to need to look up a way how to maybe fade out the regular
I think
texture.
what's going to happen is that what I'm envisioning is that like there's going to be a fire effect, and there's going to be like some kind of particle effects that's going to be emanating from the ship. So it'll be harder. It won't. I mean, like if it was just by itself, then it'd be like really noticeable. And I think like the cool part about the parts of the ship, as you can see, like I could just like place them really close to each other, and it just looks like it's a really damaged ship. And then we just have the animations or give it some.
Yeah, I think what Justin's saying is, so one thing we can do is, in the original Colony Wars, it never made sense to me if you're shooting one little corner of one of the frigates, like a wing, why does the whole ship explode? One way we can fix both of these things, the narrative of why does the ship explode, and also why do all of these little damage marks appear on it, we can, as you damage it, we could set off like tertiary explosions in other sections of the ship. Like the damage you're causing is having, a domino effect other places in the ship. Have you noticed, like on Star Trek, no matter where they get hit, there's always something wrong with the warp engine. There's this catalytic effect across the whole ship. So we could do that, little explosions all over the ship as we fade in the damage textures, so that narratively it makes more sense, if that makes any sense.
I think you just have to dress it up and just make sure that it's not like a sudden change where it would throw the player out of the game and be like, whoa, what was that?
Just all of a sudden, all at once, the whole ship.
Yeah, you don't want to lose the immersion. That's kind of a big deal. So
yeah,
I think what would be a good fix to this is that for these damaged models, we need to have what you have is that you have the original model, which is all pristine looking. Then we have the broken apart model, which is the original model is split into different parts, but it has the effect where the whole is damaged. What we should do is that we should split the model into different parts like we have been doing, but don't apply the damage effect. So it's just split up. That what we can do there is that we can apply this sort of split up feature with the pristine looking model, and then we can fade out that texture and then fade in the broken one so it looks a bit more seamless. And then what we can do, like what Alex said, which was we fade in the broken texture specifically for different parts after explosion effects appear on them, and so that would fix the issue. We would just have two separate like models. One is pristine model, the other one is broken apart model, and then I guess 3 different textures. One big texture map for the original ship that's not broken apart. One texture map for the broken apart ship, which is like it's broken apart, but the whole looks fine. And then one final map for the it's broken apart and it doesn't look fine.
Okay. It's kind of hard to follow, but I think I see what you're talking about. Yeah. Now, the cool part about the ships that I'm working on is that I'm not. They're using the UVs. The UVs aren't being changed, so you can swap out with whatever texture.
Yeah, we just do a material change. Yeah.
Oh wait,
And the
really?
next part-
It's the UV is not changing?
No. The only thing, how I'm doing it is, check it out. So it's literally, I separate the models and they have their own texture. And it's just like a shell that just covers, it's like I'm just covering it up. It has its own UVs on this part, but the actual ship still has the original.
All right, forget what I said. This is amazing. This is like, even
You're
better.
overcomplicating it, Justin.
I was expecting it to be a whole different. Okay, here's the thing. I don't know anything about visuals.
Yeah. No. We totally understand. But we're glad we have so many options, Justin. We have multiple ways we can do this.
Yeah.
Well, what we have right here is like exactly what I was describing already. So I'm very glad that that's true because that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to remake assets or anything like that. That's a pain in the butt, and I'm trying to go for simplicity.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because it's a projects like these can really ramp up, and all of a sudden you have like years of work to be done, and you're just like, no.
And they ramp up, and then you work for years. Everyone wants the game out. You say not yet because it's too glitchy, but then you release it anyways, and then everybody hates you because it's glitchy, a la Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah. So now what I do is, for this part, right, I just have to like select the new shells. So I just sort of like hack the part, and I guess really like you went in carelessly, like kind of like this isn't ideal typology at all, but it doesn't really matter because what I'm gonna do is I like select it all, I separate it, grab the faces, triangulate, and now what I do in real time is just unwrap, make it really big. It doesn't really matter. I'm not putting this in any other programs. And I just go and I select the material that I want, and now I have a broken part. Still uses the original texture and everything, and it's just it'll explode.
So let me put something out there.
Yeah.
If we're talking about, so one of the things we're talking about breaking showing the damage on the ships and possibly and how the ships look when they destroy them. Here's the thing. So we mentioned why do they always explode if you've only been doing damage to certain parts? My question is, why do they have to? Why can't there be a chance the ship just goes dead and starts drifting?
I mean, you can do that.
That's interesting.
I mean, that makes more sense because why would the ship crack open anyways unless you hit it hard enough with something big? But you're just you got a bunch of small lasers, they're not exactly
lasers and torpedoes.
Chance the ship explodes, but there's a chance it doesn't.
Yeah, I imagine the original game made everything explode to conserve resources, but we don't have that sort of
limitation.
Yeah.
Since you've got the broken parts there anyway, if the ship does explode, why doesn't it leave debris that may do the same thing?
It would be nice to have the debris, let's say that the span of the battle has been going on for a while, and these ships would be drifting on fire with whatever in space, and then eventually, it would just leave this history of the battlefield that you're currently in, having to maneuver around broken ships. It seems pretty cool to me, and I don't mind the idea of also because, like I said, the textures that I made in Substance Painter with the generator. That could be the dead ship. If the ship just switches the texture without exploding, or maybe there is a chance and there isn't a chance, we can leave it up to there, and it's kind of variable like that, like coding.
I mean, we could, in theory, you got to figure after the explosion, these chunks floating around, a lot of the levels only have a couple of these big capital ships in it. I don't imagine it would be past the polygon budget of this game to leave the chunks floating around in space.
Well, the good part about doing a space fire environment like that is that there's no real. It's the cheapest.
You don't have any environment geometry.
Yeah. There's no geometry. You're just floating in space. So, we could throw as many of these things and make the environment more full with different things like that. You know, don't forget about putting like asteroids in the distance that you never actually go to, but just saying them in the distance would be cool.
Yeah, that is something. I mean, I guess the question is, do we want to change the original 2 games that much to allow for that? Is that too much a step away from the original games? I guess that's one of the things we can play test. And when we put the demo out there, you know, we can let the community have a voice in it.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of their baby, so.
Another thing, just while we're on the topic of like level and stuff, when I was recording, Justin, this is more for you. When I was recording the footage for our trailer, we need to limit, I think, the furthest a player, an AI, or an object can drift.
Yep. Yeah.
Because right now, I was chasing bad guys out beyond the rendering distance of some of the capital ships.
Mm-hmm.
And we should limit that. That sounds like a no-brainer, but
that was one of the things I was gonna work on this week in particular, because they're just responding. They don't know how far away the player is. What I'm gonna work on this week is making them like convincing them that they need to move in the direction of the player, but not too far away.
Yeah, and I feel like we should set like a sphere that no object should be able to escape. I don't know what it'll look like for the ships. Like, can you just not accelerate past that point? Is it like hitting a wall? Or is there...
What I was thinking at one point that we could try out, which is even if one of the ships drift too far away, we just sort of teleport it back when the player isn't looking, so they don't think that anything changed, but the ship is just a little bit close. Like it's too little to notice, but it's close enough so that the player, if they did decide to just start attacking that one behind them, then it wouldn't be like a 40-second drive.
Sure. But what happens with the player? Like, what happens if the player flies really long in a certain direction? We should
instead of orienting them around the origin of the world, I think we should make it around like the player is the origin. As in, this sphere you're talking about is always like at the player. So
like in the first level, I noticed the leisure barge, it slowly heads toward the Earth. Situations like that, you can still move outside the calling distance of the capital ships.
Mm-hmm.
We could do a gigantic sphere that you were talking about with the texture and the draw distance is that you can't see it until you're really close to it, and then it'll reveal itself. We could have some lingo saying that you are leaving the battle zone.
Oh, like Battlefield or something.
Yeah, and you're like, oh.
You could even key the AI in to treat the edge of the sphere as an object. Then its own instructions will tell it to avoid that area.
Yeah, but
that wouldn't be too hard to do. I already have the logic for that set up. But we could also just make it so there's nothing to really orient to the player after a certain point. So if we keep all the objects of the game inside the quote-unquote player area, then the player tries to just keep moving out. Just make it so they don't move, and the player probably wouldn't notice until even if they were purposefully boosting off into the distance for 5 minutes, is we just don't move them, and they're able to turn back around.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't notice until after they turn back around. It wouldn't really be jarring to them because there's nothing there's no trees or anything so they can be like, all right, that tree isn't getting any bigger.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What I'm worried about is situations where we have some game object like a capital ship heading in a direction. Maybe we're supposed to escort it or chase it, or maybe it just moves out of frame. Eventually, it moves outside of the calling distance. We have to come up with some way of preventing that. Does it just get to the edge of some boundary and then just stop?
If you're supposed to be escorting it and it gets outside of the sphere in question, that feels like a mission failure to me.
What about the first mission with the leisure barge?
Did the background change its Did the background get any bigger the more you move towards like the Earth in the original game?
No, the way it handled in the original game, there was a sphere that was the level, and when you got to the edge of the sphere, you no longer got further away from other objects inside of the sphere, but you still got the little stars flying by as if you were moving. So it wasn't.
Yeah, that's what I was describing earlier. We just make it so they don't move after this edge.
The player doesn't move after the edge.
The player doesn't move, but also we can do the same thing with other objects, or we can even just move the player closer. We just apply a little force towards the object that is furthest away from them, so that it doesn't seem like it's moving, but it still is moving through space, and maybe the background gets a little bit bigger, but they're physically not going to be out of the viewport.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look into different solutions this week.
Okay, cool. Then Justin, I guess we transition. Do you want to show off anything for today's meeting?
Oh yeah, hold on. Let me see if this controller works. Yes. All right, I'll share my screen.
Okay. Dan, this looks super good, dude. I am so excited.
Yeah. Oh my god.
All right, let's see if this works.
Okay, we see Unity.
All right. This is so. Last week, there was a lot of problems with ships running into each other.
Yeah.
Does this work? No. Great.
Yeah, I see like almost like a cell phone in portrait mode.
Okay, so there is let's see. So this controller isn't functioning right now, but what we have now in this current scene is all these different ships sort of moving around each other, and they're not really. They're doing a lot more predictive stuff to make sure they don't actually hit each other.
Should we be seeing it in a portrait? Kind
What do you see right now?
We see it in a portrait, almost like you're holding, like it's playing on a cell phone. Try sharing the whole screen and not just the window.
Change. Okay, hold on. Let me redo this.
Yeah.
So install for time.
Dan, tell us about your hat.
Modeling stuff.
Dan, I like your Christmas hat that's also leopard skin.
Yeah, you know, right? My wife got it a couple, 2 years ago, and I was like, this is awkward, but I like it, you know, like, I never thought, like, you know, you'd mix, like, cheetah print on the Christmas hat.
Yeah.
It's kind of tacky, but I love it.
It's kind of tacky, but it's funny.
I'm rocking it, I don't give a shit. Christmas!
There we go. Okay,
All right,
so
the entire screen
it was
visible?
a little window in. Okay.
Let's see. So a lot of stuff going on right now with Unity, so it's pretty laggy. But I'm gonna see if I can try and get enough of the scene visible so that I can have a sort of demo with it.
Okay.
What we have in there is in this scene currently we have just sort of ships trying to avoid each other, and previously last week what we had was it was just really difficult to sort of get ships to predict where other ships would be to the extent where they would just run into each other, basically.
Yeah.
What we have now is these ships sort of going, collisions are bad, so anytime that there is a ship moving in the same direction as us, let's just turn around. And in the console bottom left, it should print out each time there is a collision, and you can see that there is no collisions in the scene right now.
Yeah.
As in, since this program started, there has not been a single collision.
Yeah.
But it is very difficult, all the stuff that's going on in terms of there's a lot of math involved. But right now you can also see a lot of these things are doing a lot of loops, really.
Yeah.
They're just sort of moving in circles a little bit. And that's what I'm going to work on this week. They're a lot more reactionary than they are proactive, like trying to move out of the way of things, but they are still trying to accomplish their goals, which is after a certain amount of time move out of the viewpoint of the enemy and just start firing at them when you're able to get a a straight shot at them.
Yeah.
But at the same point, if they ever see another enemy is in their viewpoint, then they'll just sort of turn around and try to not get hit by them.
I see.
No, you got me really thinking, like, if we were to somehow get our hands on, like, I don't know, like an outdated version of like some kind of like fighter jet maneuver handbook, and that way we could implement maybe like something that the AI would be able to implement, like, oh, I got something on my tail, I'm gonna do a barrel roll, and it's gonna, like, you know.
You were gonna say that. Do a barrel roll.
Like, yeah,
If I could find the sort of manual you're talking about, that would be very good, because I've been sort of strapped for ideas about like how they should react in different situations. So currently, all I have is.
I don't see how hard that would be. Just be like saying, like, okay, this is the A maneuver, and it's gonna do this, and you know it requires me to do a barrel roll, and then you know.
Well, what I have right now is basically going. We have a few actions which are look straight at enemy and fire at them. Do a semicircle to look away from the enemy, and survey the area to get more information about the environment by just sort of rotating around a certain point.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's also look away from the enemy and sort of move in a circular motion so they can't fire too good. But that's the only 4 actions at this point, and I have all the framework to add a lot more actions, and that'd be the best thing we could do for this project right now to make it more complex. But
I'm sure that's something we can Google. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I just googled it up and I just found some basic fighter maneuvers on Wikipedia. So.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Throw that in the Discord. I want to read that later.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's cool. You can find whatever you want. Samurai clowns and jet fighter. This looks good. I think my only complaint about what I'm seeing is that is the Earth that big? Could it be a little smaller? Like,
I think in the original game, it takes up most of the screen.
Yeah, in the original game, it takes up. It's supposed to be pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, I think it's almost too
fighter
overwhelming.
maneuvers, oh my God.
I mean, it looks great and all that stuff, but it's just, man, like, huge. Oh, you just got shot.
Yeah, I'm not moving, so that it's a really easy target for them.
Yeah, this is looking really good. I'm really happy, like, seeing all this like come together.
Yeah.
Showing the pieces of debris just floating in space and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was for this week. I also did a lot of quality of life things. The decals were broken momentarily, but I fixed that. I think what we were talking about earlier, which was the decals spawn underneath the fire decals to signify like that part of the ship is damaged.
Mm-hmm.
That would be good to get. Like just a PNG of just damage. I think that'd be good.
Like a PNG of
all the texture information, and he has it. But I can send it to you too. They're not that big. They're just target files.
We're talking about like bullet holes, right?
Like basically like bigger bullet holes, basically.
Like burn marks.
Yeah, that's exactly the word.
Yeah, because in the original, remember when like there'd be an impact and there'd be this little round burn mark. It would also be there when you hit an enemy's shields. And yeah, it's too bad that burn, that orange, couldn't transition into a bullet hole.
Yeah, I could definitely do that. I just need that second texture. We have the orange texture that fades after a bit. We need another texture underneath that, which is like just a burn mark.
Okay.
And I need that.
Yeah, Dan, if you have those, if you could shoot them to Justin. I know Matt has them, but
yeah, I'll send them to you. Yeah, it's I'll send it to you.
Cool. Oh my God, it looks so good. I'm so excited. Cool. Well, if there's nothing else, I think that concludes the meeting.
All right.
Okay. We'll all be in touch. This week I'm going to focus on actually working on the final deliverables for the UI. so that when we buy that package and I hand the whole thing to Matt, he's not completely overwhelmed. So
I think when it comes to weapons, all we need is that grapple and that. I think the grapple is like the main big thing. So if we only got down that, then we'd be good for the demo, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm gonna leave it to him if we do the defense pod in the demo, because I don't know how much work is entailed. I imagine the grappling hook might actually be more difficult to code than the defense pod, because the defense pod can adopt so many of the behaviors from both the missile and the AI, but I don't know how he's planning on doing the grappling hook, and part of that is creating the visuals for it. We can create an individual hook that, flies out of your ship and latches on if the enemy ship is within a certain radius. But I'm not sure how we do the rope part. I'm not sure how he's planning on coding it. And what happens is the build set up right now. So we know that all the ships have mass and they fly when they have acceleration to fly. In the original game, if you roped something and you just let go of your accelerator, you would become like a weight on the enemy ship, but they could still tow you around a little bit. Are we even set up to do the same thing? Is our physics engine even set up to do something like that?
Probably.
That might be a better question for Matt, but
I know what we have right now is just rigid bodies, in the sense that each ship has their own mass. I think it's like 55,000 kilograms, maybe. That's like how much a regular fighter pilot weighs. Fighter jet, not fighter pilot.
Yeah.
But we could make it so when you pull on the grapple, that's you applying a force that like an opposing force for the thing you're grappling, in the sense that it applies on both you and the target, and so which would be what you're describing, basically. So if you actually grappled a frigate, you wouldn't actually pull anything because of how much more they weigh than the player does.
Yeah.
They'd be applying their own force against the player, which would make it so the player just can't move until they disable their grapple. But for the smaller ships, they'd be able to get some kind of leeway.
Okay.
Well, I almost forgot to show you guys. I wanted to show you that damage texture. So it's actually, I made it in 3D and I just rendered out parts of it. That's how I was able to make the emissive texture. And so this is like, it's just a bunch of like the modifiers that I'm using. It's a bevel, solidify, subdivision, and then array for this part. And like it kind of just like I could make, just it rotates and it moves it, because I put the empty in a location that's not center of the 3D world, and it allows me to do stuff like that. And like it's just literally like it's just a plane, and I just like subdivided it in a certain way, and then I just cut out what I didn't need, and I can just move it around and all that stuff. And this could be converted into I deleted all this stuff. Yeah, but it's just things layered on top of each other. And
yeah.
So I thought about this a long time ago, for a while, not a long time ago, trying to figure out how to make, like what parts would, what it would look like and everything. So, and it does have a material on there, and it's like really simple. It's just like, it's two different textures with the nodes and everything. They share the same normals. And then they just overlap each other, and it just turned out really good. Like
it does turn out really good. Can you show it from like top down so we can see the overall texture itself, the overall object?
Yeah, I have a camera in here, and so I set it up with the camera so that way we could just like it's I have like a square that represents like a 1024 size. And everything, and so
so if we get all the pieces closer together, because we don't want to see like it abruptly get cut off.
Right. Yeah. No. And so it's like, and this is what it would look like. It's just like a rendered thing. I put the fancy textures on it, and so it's. And then, yeah, so I rendered out the lights without the texture, and then I took it into Photoshop, and I just like really put a lot of like exposure and brightness and contrast, and then just like really like amped it up. And then I took a render of the debris without any lights in it. It's just one particular light facing down on it. That like, and so it's 3 textures, but yeah, it really pulls off a nice effect and all that stuff. And
Cool.
And I tried to mimic like the side of the ship on the edges, and then I just like I just piled a bunch of like burnt debris and right on top of it, and just piled it. It turned out really good.
Yeah.
And so these models and stuff, like they're ready to be exported, and the texture and all that stuff. They're all unwrapped and everything too, and it's not like really hard or anything. And like this could be one material, and then just have these emanate particles and stuff too over the ships, so that way it looks like it's like the same parts are flying out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, like just twisted metals flying off and stuff like that. Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah, it turned out really good, and I'm really happy with it. It's just it's really simple, but it's great.
Yeah, it's impactful. Cool. Yeah, just send that over to Justin then. Okay, guys, great hustle this week. Sorry Matt's not here, but he'll catch up next week. That's another thing. Do we want to do a meeting next week? Because that'll be right around the holidays.
I'm down. Maybe whatever.
Okay. I'm flexible. I'm not going anywhere. I don't have anyone coming over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I may
good
be able to
whenever,
make it. I'll let you guys know if I can't.
Okay. Sounds good. What'd you say, Justin?
I'm good whenever. Also, I'll be able to make it.
Okay. Then let's just do a meeting next week then.
Yeah, it could be a short one, whatever.
Yeah.
Or we could hang out.
Yeah, or we just hang out. There we go. Alrighty, cool. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I will see you next week, and that concludes our meeting.
All right. We'll see you then.
Later, guys.